Are you guys able to see my screen? Yes. No. Perfect. Okay. So yesterday we covered uh, properties in Pega. Like we understood what are properties, which category does this roll up under, and we created a bunch of properties. Also understood what are different types of properties are there: single value properties, single page properties, and page list properties, page group properties, and something called as value list and value group is also something we saw, right? And we also understood how exactly can we create those properties, right? So we logged into our application and we understood that, okay, from my work class, admin at alpha, then the password is root. So we understood how exactly properties are created, and there are three different ways, right, which we saw yesterday. One is through um, the designer, like data designer, which we found. Just give me a second. Let me go back to Designer Studio. So it will just come up. Okay, perfect. So Dev Studio. Dev Studio is a place where any Pega developer would do any piece of work, and work area is something which he'll be exploring to do any such tasks, right? And we were able to figure out that there is a data designer, which I can right click on my work class, which I was able to find from here, and then when I click on view data designer, I could create properties from this view by clicking on add field, and we did create many properties here, right? We did add field and then created most of the properties here, right? And also what we did, we right clicked on data model and also we created few properties, yes or no, right? We created few properties. Also using the create properties wizard, also we created few properties, and this gives me a list of all the properties we created. We created all these properties. Perfect. So this is a background about yesterday. Today we are going slightly ahead, right? Today is a new day, and then tomorrow will be a holiday because of Diwali. I'm sure you don't want to hear my voice on a festival's morning, right? So today we'll be stay 8, right? Within no time we have spent 8 days together. Perfect. And today we'll be focusing on something called as sections, right? Sections in Pega. So jumping ahead and trying to help you understand what is this all about, right? Let's say the initial example which we took, which we are trying to build, an auto insurance application, mimicking something which we saw here, right? There is start where we gave username and details, and vehicle details is something on which this screen we are right now. So let's say all these fields are you are able to see on the UI, right? UI is nothing but a user interface which is presented to a user, using which he will provide the information. We're able to provide that information on this UI, but you see this area, like you see this section where you're able to fill these details. Are we able to see that? Right, perfect. So that particular section can be designed in Pega as well. For example, first name, last name, and this is one section which is asking you to fill some details. It looks like a form, but this is pretty much like a section which is asking you to fill some details, yes or no. So to design something like this in Pega, the basic entity which is necessary to design something like that is section. This is nothing but a UI component which Pega provides. There are a lot of components which Pega provides. Let's try to see them. So we did properties, perfect. Now let me try to go to records and look for user interface category. Did we discuss that there are multiple categories which we have to remember? For example, for properties, it is always under data model, yes or no, right? Same way, We also looked at classes, right? Classes are under sysadmin, right? So for whatever we have covered is what I'm showing. I'm not showing anything fancy. Organization is under organization category. See the alpha organization which we saw. Also for user interface, there is a separate category called user interface. What this means, all the rules which are necessary to build a UI, a display like similar to this guy, right? Similar to this guy is something, the tools necessary to build this can be found under this category is what we are seeing under user interface category. I'll come again. So any application will need a user interface, right? And to design that user interface, either you should know a language called HTML or JavaScript or React or Angular. But here we are focusing on a non low code or a no code platform, which means I don't need to know HTML, JavaScript or React or Angular JS to build any user interface. That means I just need to be able to build a user interface without knowing these languages. So Pega, to help people like you and me who don't understand any of these languages to build user interfaces like this, it helps us by giving a set of tools. Those tools are found under user interface category, and of that, the place where you will be adding all these fields is called a section rule. Does it make sense? Perfect. So now I just opened the section category from the wizard, right? I opened the section category of the wizard. User interface has a section rule, right? User interface category has a section rule. Let's say user interface category has section rule, which is what we are trying to explore today. We are trying to understand what is a section all about, right? So what does a section contain? Let's see, right? Let me try to open. First, let me understand. So which class does property belong to? We saw yesterday, right? We saw yesterday what class does property belong to, right? Though it was created under work class, it belongs to something called as rule obj property class. Do we agree? Did we see this yesterday? Right? In the same way, section also belongs to a certain instance of class. Let's try to see what does it belong to. Let me open any of the sections. Like I clicked on this thing and it's giving me a list of sections which are available. Let me open some section. Okay, I'm just picking one random. These are out of the box sections. Why? Because they're already present. You see when they are created 12, 19, 20, 21 and so forth. These are something which Pega has already provided. Whatever Pega has already provided, what do we call it? Out of the box. Do we agree? Have we read this before? Perfect. So I tried opening one of the sections. If you open a section, it pretty much opens like this. Uh, they need to see a design. Okay, it's loading. Slightly slower because it's local environment. So it looks something like this. So if you see, a section contains layouts, some controls, and some UI elements, tables and elements like that is what it contains. Don't worry, we'll try to design that and you'll understand it much better. But let's try to understand what class does this belong to. Any rule to understand which class does it belong to. One thing is, if you see now, you will know, and later you will understand, you will remember that okay, all the sections belong to these classes. But if you don't understand, what you can anytime do, you can open that particular category, that particular rule, and then you open one of the rules. For example, py render simulator outbound is one of the sections I opened, and then you can go from the actions tab. There is something called as view xml. Okay, under view xml, come on, it's loading. Come on, okay, it loaded. Under view xml, if I do a control F and look for px obj class, okay, which means the class to which this particular rule belongs to. What is the class here? Rule HTML section. In the same way, for property, what did we have? Rule obj property, right? Perfect. Do we understand how exactly I can figure out which class section rule belongs to? To R is a instance of tool hyphen html hyphen section, right? Do we agree? Perfect. So now we understood, okay, this belongs to this section. And what a section contains is, it consists of few layouts. Okay, a section consists of section consists of layouts. What are these layouts? We'll see that layouts. And it also consists of, layouts are nothing but, these are nothing but tables, like a table, like Excel table or something like that. You can imagine something like that. Okay, and it also contains controls. Controls are nothing but UI elements. Did we see some controls yesterday? PX radio button. Did we see those? Pick list. Did we see some controls on few of the properties yesterday? Right? So these are nothing but user interface elements. Don't worry about this. This is just a definition, but I'll help you understand by doing, like, learning by doing is what we are here for. So let's try to do that. Perfect. Now we understood the definition. Perfect. So let's do one thing. Yesterday we created few properties, right? Let's try to add that to a new section. Let's create a new section and try to understand how exactly section is created. Like we did, most of the rules can be created exactly the similar way we created yesterday. To create a property, what did we did? We right clicked. We did to designer also, but we also, one way we did was we right clicked on the class, and then we told create data model, and then we created property. In the same way, don't I see user interface category here? So no. Perfect. So from user interface also I can go from here and I can create a section. I'm coming back again. To create a section rule, just see here, only three categories are coming here. Why? Because only these three rules we have. That's why we are seeing only these three categories. Now just see, when I choose user interface, I want to create a section rule. I'll right click on this particular class, click create. On that, I'll see user interface as a pop-up, right? And then from here, I will choose something called as section. Do you understand how I can navigate to section? Yes or no? Perfect. So let's say we want to create a customer details section, because yesterday the properties we created were about the details about the customer, right? Yes or no? Yes, right? Perfect. So now I want to create a customer details section. It belongs to my implementation application, which is auto insurance application, and it has to be under my work class. And don't forget about this rule set and thing we haven't reached yet. I'll explain you this thing later. Just understand that this is how a section is created. You have to give a name to the section, and then if you see, the identifier is to be determined, in the sense, once you give a name here, Pega automatically pops up this thing by removing the spaces. If you have spaces in between, it will remove the spaces and it will give an identifier. For example, if I do tab, see, do you see this thing getting popped up? It's just a name of the section. Whatever the name of the section, it gets popped up, and it's a unique identifier to look up for yourself within the instance. Don't worry about that. It's just a name, the name you have given for the section. Now let me say create and open. Are everyone with me? Like how exactly I'm trying to create a section? Perfect. Okay. Okay. So now I'll say create and open, and you will see there is the work area gets popped up with the section rule. If you see here, some details like section, customer details section gets popped up. It's telling it's available. The class it belongs to is alpha auto hyphen work, and the ID which got populated was customer details section. Are you able to relate for what we have or what we did? Yes, no? Perfect. Now to modify this further, right, we need to do a small uh, enablement here. What is that? If you see, this section is configured using the view editor. To access the full design capabilities, you need to convert to full section editor. Nothing, you just have to click this button so that you can add additional elements to it. That's what it means. Okay, whenever you get a section like this, just look for this icon or this link and just click on this. That's it. What it will do, it will enable you so that you can add additional elements to this section. You understand? You just click that and then you are able to now modify this or do whatever, like that. So what did we say as part of definition? We told section is something which consists of layouts. Did we say that? Right? So do you see a layout automatically added here when we created a blank section? There is a dynamic layout stacked something it tells. Don't worry about what that is. Just see how exactly we can design it. There is a stacked dynamic layout which is already existing. So let's say I want to what my goal is to build something like this. Where is my uh, I want to have a section which populates details like this. This is my end goal today. What my focus for today is we being able to understand how exactly we create a section and how exactly I can add, how exactly I can add all the properties in a section and display it on my UI. That's my goal today. That's what we are trying to achieve. In that process, we have created a section here. Now if you see, the category has not popped up here, right? If I just refresh this section, this class, you will see that. See, I'll refresh. Wow, this is strange. Okay, let's try to do some changes and then, okay, you know why? Because if you see, the section is still in new status. Let me just save it and then you will see that it will start popping up here. Okay, now that I saved it, it was in new status. Pega doesn't know if it has been created. Now when I refresh it, it should show you. Do we see user interface category and customer details section? Perfect. Now what we did, we just added a section. We just created a section and told, okay, yes, save it. And then we clicked and we converted it into a template where we can add anything. Right now, existing layout is what Pega has already given us. When we created a blank section, it has given us a layout. This contains nothing. It's a blank section altogether. Okay. Now to this layout, you can add properties. You can add another section if you want. You can add UI elements. You can add drop downs, stuff like that. Let's see what we can do here. First, let me try to show you how exactly I can look at the configuration of this particular layout. How can I look at that? I can click on this particular gear icon. Are we able to see this on the layout? If you see, it tells view properties. Let me click on that. Okay. Okay, now it gave me a modal dialog or a window on top of a window. Backside I have a window. On top of that I got a window. So these sort of windows are called as modal dialogs. Don't you see those? Sometimes when you try to pick a date, you will see another window coming on top of window, small window coming on top of a window. Don't we see that? Like that. For configuration, it comes like this. It is also called as modal dialog. Just remember that. I mean, you might need it sometime later. Now when I opened that gear icon, I saw this, right? And if you see, the layout format is put here as stacked. Okay, what does that mean? I'll show you. Don't worry about that. Now let me try to change this, because I will use something called as inline grid double. Okay, so I'll use something called as inline grid double. The one which was already by default came as was stacked. I'm changing it to inline grid double. Okay, what is this? We'll see that. Okay, don't worry, I'll show you that. When I show you, it will make more sense to you. Also, what I want, for example, on this section, I want to have the header title also. In the sense, if you see here, uh, there is a title, for example, retrieve a vehicle code by, there is some title they have given. Like that, I want to give this my section, I want to give a title to that particular section. So what I will say, come on, okay, I will say display the header title is what I will check. Okay. Now, as soon as I check, if you see, let me disable it. Right now, there is no name to my section, the header. Okay, header in the sense the top bar is called as the header. So right now there is no name. If I want a name there, I have to check this. Okay, and then if you see a container setting sort of a window got opened, and then here it's asking me give a name. Right now, title is what it is there. Right? Do you understand? Let's give a title which makes sense to it, right? So I'll say right now we are gathering customers information. I will say okay, provide customer info. So far what we have done is created a section. A layout was already added. I just opened the gear icon, changed the stacked to inline grid double, okay, and then told okay, give me a header name also, like, just a header name. Any part of this is looks like coding to you? Am I doing any programming language here so far? Yes, no? No, right? Perfect. So if that is met, we are good. So we understand what we are doing. So let me just see the background layout, how it changes as soon as I click submit. Do you see this? Before it was telling stacked, now it tells inline grid double, and then it tells provide customer info. Yes or no? Perfect. So this is an external dynamic layout which we have added. Now to add the properties, let me add, inside this thing I want to add one more layout. Okay, for example, where can I find layouts would be a question. Like most of the elements which you need to design a section are found. For example, if I need layouts, I would go under structural category. If I click on structural category, see what do I see? I see different layouts which are available. Another dynamic layout is what I can add. I can add a layout group, column driven layout, repeating dynamic. What are these? We'll see. Don't worry about what all these are. Just understand how exactly a section is being built. Just go with the flow and understand how exactly you are trying to build a section. Okay. Just understand it from that particular perspective. What you have to know from here is this is how a section is created. There was already a layout existing. We were able to modify that using this gear icon. We added a label to this thing, and also if I need additional layouts, I can go to structural, right? Under structural category, I'll see additional layouts. So let's say I want to add one more layout to it. Let me drag a dynamic layout and let me add it. Am I able to add it here? Do you see this? Right now you see only one dynamic inline grid layout. Now as soon as I drop it here, you see there is another layout which got added to this parent layout. Yes or no? Perfect. Now if I have to open the settings of this particular layout, what will I do? Very good, right? Simple enough. Perfect. Now let us see the layout format. Let us choose something very specific. uh, let's say we don't want any of this. I want other. And if I say other, see there are additional uh, layout formats which come up. Now I'll say here I want it to be stacked with labels on left. We'll see what exactly this means. Don't worry. I chose stacked with labels on left, and everything else remains same. And I'll say submit. Okay. What we did, there was an existing layout. We did some modification there. After that, we went to structural category, dragged a dynamic layout, and then we changed the format of the layout to stacked with labels on left. Everyone with me? Perfect. Now let's try to add properties to this particular section, right? How can we add properties? One simple way of doing that is we have the data model, right? Let me open that. This is the data model we built. These are the properties we added, right? Ideally, what does a section will have? First name, last name, stuff like that, right? Let's start with that, like a basic understanding. Let's say I want to capture the users. When you go to a property, you will see, when you click here, it will be a finger icon, and but you try to move on these dots, you will see this 4x4 sort of a button, which will help you drag and drop. For example, I can drag that and drop here. See this? Isn't it interesting? Like, without doing anything, what we are doing is the properties we created, we're just pulling from here and dropping here, and it is adding me f name. In the same way, I also want to add last name, right? Interesting. I want age. Too challenging, too complex, not able to understand, let me know. I'll stop and I'll explain you in much simpler way. Age. And then I want this guy's email. I also want this guy's gender. Right? Do you see most of the stuff Pega is doing by itself? Also want his phone number. Are we able to build something which was similar to what we saw? Yes or no? Let me save it, okay? I saved it. But now there is one problem here, right? For example, uh, where I didn't add country, I guess, right? Okay. Right. After age, nahi. After gender, let me add. Okay, I want to add country. I also want to add the state. Also want to add the city. Perfect. Now let's save this. Okay. Let me see what control has it chosen for this guy. To check any field, see, we again see a gear icon. I came on this thing and it gives me a gear icon. Now we know to check configuration, what will we do? We click on that particular element and we see what is a gear icon. Right now, if you see the, let me come back from here. So first name, right? Let us see what is the first name. First name has, f name and then text input, right? The control it is using is text input. Perfect. It's a text input, right? Yes or no? But if you see the country, state and city, it is defaulting to India, Karnataka and Bangalore. Yes or no? But ideally, when you try to see a user interface, it's ideally select from a drop down, right? Yes or no? Select is what you will see. You won't see something defaulted already. Yes or no? Right? It automatically doesn't populate. You'll have to choose something. It shouldn't be popular like hard coding. For example, if you are accessing this thing from Australia and if that gets defaulted to India, Karnataka and Bangalore, it won't make sense to the application. Yes or no? So ideally the application should have select there, right? So to do that, we can change the UI element it is using. For example, right now, if you see in this particular feed, the country is using something called as drop down. Let me change that, and choose something called as autocomplete. Do you see this? When I try to click on this change, I see these many, UI elements to choose from. For example, if I want to change it to text input, I can change that. I want to make it an integer, I can make that. If I want to make it date time, I can make that. If I want to make it a checkbox, I can make that. Right now, what I want to do, I want the user to be able to select from a drop-down list, and he should get a list. It shouldn't default a value, but he should get something called as select there. To do that, I'll choose a control called as auto complete. Okay, and then right now I will say submit. See, it went off. Now when the user tries to go there, he has to literally write it, and then it will populate him with the respective state or city or country, whatever he wants. Same thing I need for state also, right? I'll do that. Are we able to understand how user interface can be built and modified? Perfect. If this thing is understood, right, most of your job will be in designing sections in your journey as a Pega developer. Most of your task will be like at least 30% of your development will be designing sections. So understand this, and this will of course make your life easy, right? Perfect. Are we able to understand so far? Yes, no? Very good, very good. Okay. From here, what else can we show? Okay, so the first name is showing as F name. We have to change that. I have to show that. What else can I show? I think I can show you some functionalities also. Okay. Now, change, we are able to complete that. Done. So let's say we have done all these changes and now we save this. Okay. There is a preview option also. I'm not sharing it, but okay, yeah, you can do preview and see, like, a sample view of how your section looks like. This is not similar to what we saw there, right, in progressive. What are the issues we are seeing here? One thing is, like, the label for this particular attribute is not something which makes F name could be misunderstood to anything, and L name doesn't look good. So I think we should have first name there, right, instead of F name. Yes or no? Right. So let's try to do that change. So this is how you have to look at a user interface and identify what are the issues in this user interface, right? I'm just giving you a small example, but there can be many such issues. Let's do one thing. So now, but we created the property with F name and L name. Yes or no? How do we change that thing? To do that, Pega gives you a really easy option. When you click on this particular modification, you know uh, use property default. Okay, I think, okay, yeah, you can uncheck this guy and then it will let you change the label value. When you open the property, for example, I'll come back again. I just came on this particular element which we want to change, and then there is, like, for the label we are telling use property default, in the sense whatever name the property is having, use the same thing is what we are saying here. If we don't want to use that, we can click on this thing and then see this gets enabled, label value gets enabled, and I can tell last name, submit. Same way I can modify this thing and tell don't use property default, but I want it as first name. Yes or no? Are we able to change that? If you see, we achieved two things here. One thing, we changed the label, but at the back end, the property it is mapped to is F name. Yes or no? Is it making sense how exactly a section gets unfolded for you? Submit. Now let me save this. So what we did yesterday, we understood properties, we created a bunch of properties. Today, we were able to add those properties into a UI rule called section. Yes or no? Okay. Is it understood how exactly a section can be created? Perfect. Let me save this and let's try to preview it, right? Let's try to preview it and see, has our change come in? Do we see a change now? This is pretty decent UI. Some to develop a screen like this in any other language, it would decently need like at least like 8 to 9 hours of effort to pull out something like this, and you can't even ensure it would look this good on a user interface. This is no way different from what you see for a Facebook sign up, right? Does it look any way different from that? Right? Easy enough. Are you guys feeling it is comfortable? Yes, no? Perfect. So now let's take one step ahead. If you see, if you don't give certain attributes, the few of the applications they throw error. For example, if I say retrieve, it tells me, hey, this is a required field. Anything like this which comes is nothing but validation, right? You are validating, like, oh, these fields are empty. Yes or no? So we also can achieve similar things in Pega. Let's see how challenging it is. For example, first name is mandatory, right? Yes or no? First name is mandatory. Do we agree? So let's say, do you see an option here when I open the gear icon from the property, from the cell properties? You know, do you see something called as required? I'll show you again how I came here. Every row here is called as a cell. Okay, when I click on the cell, I get this gear icon, and from here I can see what configuration is present for that cell. And in that, we unchecked this thing and gave the first name. Similarly, there is something called as a required property. Here I can tell I require it always, in the sense this is a mandatory field. This is how you are telling Pega, hey, this field first name is a mandatory field. Make sure this is mandatory. How are you telling that? You're telling from never you're changing it to always. Are we able to understand? Submit. I'm sorry. Uh, I didn't get your question. Yeah, I mean, the cell level properties are different. For example, if you see, it tells cell properties here, and if you see here, it tells dynamic layout properties. Does it make sense to you guys? Both are two different elements. Okay, this is a cell element, this is a layout element. Okay, that's how we are trying to categorize and do this. But if you see, all this action is happening where? Inside a section. A section is a container for layouts, for elements. Everything is happening inside this. Once you master how to create section and do this, your life is easy. I'm getting a lot of noise from someone. If you can go on mute. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Uh, so we were able to achieve creation of section. We know now how to mark a field mandatory. For example, if I have to mark this guy mandatory, what will I do? Open the gear icon. When required, I will say always, and you'll see the orange star mark coming here. Are we able to see that? Perfect. Okay, so now let's do a small change, right? So now by default, you know the alignment is on left side here. If you see, text alignment is, it's aligned to left side, in the sense all are like aligned to the left side. You see, they are in one row here. Yes or no? Right? And let us see what for integers. If you see, how do we find that? Yeah, think, okay, auto. If you see, the alignment is on right here for integer properties. Usually for integer properties, it is on right. So if you want to manually, like, if you want to change the, first of all, do we understand what is alignment? In the sense, which side are these, like, tilted towards. Though it appears here, when you try to embed it into a UI, you will see that edge will try to slightly come towards this side, or you'll see a distortion. Why? Because it is not aligned to the left side. Left alignment is like, having this evenness. Here it looks like that, but when you try to embed it into a application, what happens is it kind of shifts this side. But the point here we are trying to make is how exactly to change a alignment for a given element is what I'm trying to help you understand. Does it make sense? For example, usually for integer properties, you will see that if you have to change the alignment, that when you try to click on the properties of that particular element, cell properties, and this is an integer sort of a data type for this particular property. And then under this thing, there are three tabs: general, presentation, and actions. Most of the things we are doing so far was under general category. Now we are coming to the presentation category, and what we are trying to do, we'll see the text alignment. What is it aligned to? Right, right. So we have to change that to left. Why? Because all in our application, we want everything to be aligned towards left side. Your The customer who is going to give you your requirement, he will tell you, we want all the fields to be aligned towards left side. These are certain changes we want. Sometimes you will get bugs telling that, oh, okay, the integer field is not aligned to the left side. What will you do? You will come to the section where this particular property is defined, come to the presentation tab of this particular cell and change it to left. Are you able to understand? Perfect. Hi, hi. So here, so yeah, that also you will see. Hold on, let me show you that. Yeah, sure. Let me click on preview. Right. See. So the value, for example, if it was right now, we have changed it to left align. If not, for example, let's say right age is, let's say, 25. See, it comes as left align now. Why? Because we changed it. Now, for example, if I modify this back to the right, presentation, right, submit, save, preview. See this? Does it make sense? Perfect. So now, so this is, I think I won't drag you much further, but I would want to, like, reconsolidate. So section is one of the rules in Pega. This is a rule which we'll use to design our user interfaces, and it can be found under user interface category from the records under the Explorer tab. Yes or no? We did that, and then I went to my application work class. Under that, I created a section, and then I called that section customer details section. And we also understood it is an instance of rule HTML section class. Yes or no? Did you understand that? Perfect. And then the properties which we had created yesterday, we were able to drag and drop them and we were able to create this section, right? Did we take around 10 minutes to design this section? Yes, right. And then what we did, we were able to create, there was a layout existing. On that layout, we modified the label, that because of which we are able to see this particular, the header, right? The header, we added that, and then because of which you see, if you see the preview, sorry, oh my God, what's wrong with this? See, we are getting this header here, header title here. Yes or no? Do we remember when we added this thing on the parent layout? And then within this layout, what we did, we added another dynamic layout and told it should be stacked with labels on left. And then we dragged and dropped all the properties which we had created, and it pretty much gave us this thing. And it was defaulting to some country, state, and city, and we didn't want that. We wanted autocomplete, so we changed that to autocomplete control by coming on this configuration for that particular cell. Also, we were able to change the labels for first name and last name, right? How we did that? Clicked on cells configuration, came there and changed the label value by unchecking this box. Also, we marked this as mandatory by changing the required configuration to always, right, which resulted in this orange asterisk against these labels. And also we were able to change the alignment for age. These are the this is the stuff which we were able to accomplish today. Is section something which is familiar to you? End of this session, are we able to understand what is section? Perfect, very good. So that was the you know takeaway from today's class. If you are able to get that, that is really good, right? So I think it is again right aligned. I can change that back. If you guys have any questions, I can take that. Tomorrow we won't be having classes because of the festival. Day after tomorrow we'll be proceeding as usual. Left, submit, save. Now it should show me everything aligned towards left. You want to put it in middle, center? We can do that. The thing here is the data should be either aligned with, if your data is completely center aligned, then you should keep it centered. But just to test it out, you can do it. You can change the alignment to center. For example, here you can change it to center from here, and then it will be see this. Does it make sense? But usually the data is either left aligned or right aligned, and most of the applications what I have seen are left aligned applications. So it shouldn't be a very hard thing to crack for you. Anything which comes on those lines, using these configurations, you should be able to achieve whatever requirement is given. You should be able to achieve. I don't think there will be any issue in doing that. Do you guys feel this was challenging, like not something which you can, like, take up and design? No, right? Perfect. Okay. So if you guys have any questions, I can take them, or we can wrap up the class for today. So today was, a brief introduction or understanding what is a section rule all about, how exactly you can play around with the elements in a section. Like if you see, we have covered most of the elements like section, layout, uh, as well as, within the section, what all different elements, text elements, how we make them mandatory, and then also radio buttons we have been able to showcase, autocomplete. These are like pretty much like at a high level, these are the fields which you will be expecting, honestly. Nothing fancier than this. If you want to pick a specific uh, you know uh, list, then there is something called as pickers here, using which this is the same thing which we got when we clicked on the gear icon, right? Autocomplete. Pickers are something which you have when you have too many values of which you have to pick something. Then you go for pickers. Okay, and then for example, if you have if you want to put a map, you know, you want to insert an image or something, then you go for data display and you'll get stuff like that, a timeline, a video, you know, you'll go for this thing. Under action, you will see buttons. Action is like when you click on a button, something happens, right? That's why it is categorized under action. A link, when you click on a link opens. That's the action you're doing. A menu, for example, if you click on a menu, you'll see multiple options coming on. Attach, for example, if you have to attach a for example, in this auto insurance, if you have to attach a license, you will be using this particular tab and thing, and you will be attaching a license to it. Stuff like that. Does it make sense? Yes or no? So, and for data capture, you have certain elements. For example, text input. If you have an email, we didn't need to do it because we already defined the data model. We just had to drag and drop. Was this not pretty straightforward and easy? Okay. Okay, perfect. So that's it for today. As I said, if you are interested in this class further, I can give you the group link also. You can join that, or you can WhatsApp me on 1848219936. We are conducting this class every day at 8 a.m. IST, and I would request you join this, as well as let anyone know if you guys are, if they are interested, you can join this also. WhatsApp me on this number, and then I will add you to my WhatsApp group, and then we can take it further. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so these are depending upon the requirement. For example, we wanted something like this. Default idea usually is, you can also, to display it in this grid format, you won't be able to do it in a default layout. We can build more sections. Like what you can do, you can build more sections on default, and then you can try to add details like this and see how exactly it comes on UI. The time is short, or else I would have shown you that also. Pretty straightforward, nothing fancy. Just create another section with another name and just use that and add these fields on the UI and see how exactly it comes out. These are purely dependent on what is the requirement from the client. For example, if they wanted a stacked sort of a UI, then you will go for this. No, they don't want a stacked sort of a UI. You can choose, pick something else. For example, here you have many other options. Instead of inline grid double, you can go for default stacked inline. Inline is usually when the user just wants to type on the fly. They want additional rows to be added on the fly depending upon how many users are there. They want to add multiple rows, then you'll go for inline. Inline triple will make sure, like, instead of 2 rows, there'll be like 3 rows, and you'll be able to add 3 rows there. These all are like purely dependent on what the customer is expecting. But for your practice purpose, you can use this in your local machine, and then you can try this out. Very straightforward. There is nothing fancy about it. Okay, and header type, for example, instead of bar, you want collapsible, you can make it collapsible. You want it like a field set, you can make it field set. Collapsible is something, which will shrink off, and you can click on that and it will open up like that. The body will be collapsible. Okay, I can show you that quickly, just to show you, like, how exactly it is done, right? See, when I do a preview, using this, you see, now it is collapsible. The